Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to another episode of Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, I'm catching up with Josh Radle, who is at Enscape. And I say catching up because we hung out. Autodesk 2019. You were a speaker, presenter, lots of cool things. And now you find yourself as a customer experience rep at Enscape. And I think that's amazing. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great being here. Great catching up with you again, too. Like you said, we had some fun in Vegas. It was a good time.
Long for the days.
Yeah. A lot of late nights, early mornings.
Yeah. What was it like being a presenter there?
I was so nervous, to be perfectly honest with you. It was my first time, and I made a mistake of looking at how many people were registered for the class. And it was like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, uh-oh.
It was full.
Where they're from. I was standing up on, like, I didn't even see the room before, too. And like, I go in, they're like, oh, you're in the big room. You're on the stage. I'm like, whoa. Like, what? Like, you're up there, you get that big screen. I'm like, whoa. Even the guy like hooking the microphone up, he's like, just breathe. I'm like, what? He's like, you're good, just you'll be all right. And then like they open the doors and people start coming. I'm like, okay, showtime.
How many sessions did you host when you were there?
I just did the one. Other than that, I was at the booth, so I was bouncing around different booths, seeing how everybody was doing. So just kind of helping out where I need to help out, bringing people from my booth over to other people's booths. Yeah. Being a social butterfly.
And that is the fun part. I do miss social butterfly in general, being around folks.
Yeah, no, it was so cool. And just seeing everybody again too from the different companies, like, you know, seeing people from different rendering companies too. It was like, hey, what's up, man? Like, I know we talk once in a while, but then we get to see each other and have a couple of drinks. It's a good time.
Yeah, the layers. I love like the kind of cross-pollinations through the different like levels and hierarchies of each entity, and like, you know, then the users like get to like meet. Like we hung out with Kai, who's like, you know, part of the Enscape team. Yep. And Moritz is one of the founder. You know, just having some cocktails at like the bowling alley, and it was sort of like wild and fun. The bowling alley was fun.
Yep, the bowling alley was fun.
Yeah.
And I'm looking back, it's like, oh man. And then the concert going on in there too. It's like so much fun. I hope we get to do that again. It was so much fun.
It's gonna be on my calendar like first thing.
What's always good too, like peel back the like, all right, we don't have to talk about work. Let's just have some fun. Like, that's what it's about. Getting to know everybody on a personal level too. Like,
well, if anybody's hung out with me, my work is fun, and that is a personal level. Which is why I think Yes, Ginger BIM. I don't know if anybody noticed our Ginger BIM posting, but Josh and I reconnected. I would say basically sometime in January, you reached out to me. You're officially at Enscape. You're officially like getting your feet under you and like facilitating some of the new features that Enscape has released. And so it's great timing to have you here and just kind of broadcast some of the unique platform changes that you guys have made. So let us in.
So biggest one is we have a new 3.0 launch coming out in March. So can't really talk about all the super cool details, but what you can see is some of the stuff that is being implemented on our website and also on our forum. So you can also check it out on the forum to download it, test it out, give us some feedback on what you'd like. Some big plans are a whole new UI overhaul, which is super cool. Again, you can check it out as well too. A lot of things for Vectorworks, batch rendering for Vectorworks, some new extended upload management stuff coming out. Just some really cool stuff coming out. So we're really looking forward to it. And again, that'll be coming out in March. So again,
that's great.
You can definitely try it out. Still in beta. Recommend don't using it on a project for right now. So if you have a project that you're working on, you need to get out, stay with the stable version, please. But yeah, you can definitely try it out for yourself, and please let us know what you guys think. So that's what we're here for.
And for those who don't know,
feedback too.
I feel like you and I dove in because we were already so familiar, but for those who don't know what Enscape is, can you give us a little background?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Enscape, it's a real-time rendering engine. It's a plugin. It'll sit inside your desired CAD software. So ArchiCAD, SketchUp, Vectorworks, Rhino, and Revit. So it's a plugin. It'll sit right inside there. So you don't have to change really anything about your workflow. If you're working with dual monitors, you can have Enscape open on one window. You could have your CAD system open on one. Whatever changes you're making, Enscape will instantaneously in real time show them to you. You get a really nice looking render. That's really the real power. So we're seeing a lot more of it used for design review, because you can just have it sit over there. You can see all the changes instantaneously. Customers can see that as well too, because a lot of times customers can't look at a floor plan and see and visualize what their model is going to look like. So if you show them in Enscape, they're like, holy cow, like that's it, that's so cool. And then from there they can get that really one-to-one scale sense of what their building's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. A lot of times they'll make design changes that they didn't even think would be an issue, and then they see it and they're like, hey, maybe I don't like that, let's move it around a little bit. So that's what Enscape will provide, is that real-time model feedback.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of changed the workflow of design. So in years previous, it was sort of these like controlled sheet sets that would get developed by the designer and then get presented to the owner, and there was sort of like this, you had to digest all of the changes that had made. So like from an owner's perspective, and then you had to start imagining what those changes would feel like or look like if you were standing there, which is always a challenge. And then you had to like formulate your feedback. And then in those meetings to have it be, I've got to batch all of the comments and then get them infused into the next sheet set. I felt like an efficiency loss. And so what we're using Enscape for is that immersive experience throughout design development. So it's not like a controlled set. And so I honestly, like there's meetings where I'm making changes to the design in real time rather than having to make notes on those changes and having to go back into my model and make them, because some of them are just easy, like, which wall they want the shower system to land on. I'm like, oh, right there. Exactly. Okay, move that.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, so it definitely makes the workflow fast.
And it's fun too. That's the best part. It's fun.
So much fun. That is like the driving home for Tiberville, is that design and construction is so much fun, but it can get arduous and difficult when you're having to make so many big decisions. I felt a little bit blind. So Enscape definitely empowered our clients to like be able to see, what they're paying for, what they want to pay for.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. What's your pathway to Enscape? I feel like it was not the typical AEC industry pathway. So tell us about that.
It was a little bit different. So first, I always had the passion for visual effects and motion graphics. Like, I'm a huge sports fan, so seeing those motion graphic titles, like I wanted to go do that. That was my thing. Virtual reality, augmented reality, that was my thing. So I went to school for visual effects and motion graphics, graduated with a degree in that, but I felt like there was something missing. Like I really found 3D modeling. I always had a passion for AEC stuff. Always had a passion for buildings, just how they looked, especially architecture visualization too. That always infatuated me too. I was always obsessed looking at it and stuff. So I went back to school. I had a consultation with an advisor at a game design school. And I was like, well, I like playing video games, but I don't know about developing them. He's like, well, the skills you'll learn here, you can take to architecture visualization, 3D modeling, texturing, rendering, lighting, motion capture, not so much, but motion capture is still cool. So utilizing those skills, I was able to land a job while I was still in college at an Autodesk reseller. I got hired to do 3D printing at the time, and then we spun off a 3D printing company. So I was doing photogrammetry scanning, where we could create little mini 3D prints of you. And then from there, I could take those digital avatars and then create digital renderings of them. So we could put little Easter eggs inside of Enscape or inside any other real-time rendering program. So that was super cool, and doing that with assets. And then from there, that kind of led me into, hey, with the rise of like Enscape coming up, Lumion, all those other ones, it was like, hey, well, you have a video game design background. Let's start pushing you towards that. So I started picking up, Enscapes, because when I worked for the Autodesk reseller, they were also a reseller of Enscape, Fuser, and V-Ray. So I could learn all those. And then I had access to architects, engineers, constructions, everybody from the different types of industries. So I'd pick their brain. How are you using this? How are you using this? Is this beneficial? How could we all work together here? So I really got to know a lot of people, got to know their workflows and such. So, and then from there, found my way to Enscape. I was unemployed for a couple months, and then a good friend of mine reached out, Dan Stein, was like, hey, reach out to Enscape on your behalf. So then Enscape reached out to me. I know Moritz too, and I know Kai. So I was an Enscape reseller, or worked for an Enscape reseller. So I kind of had the connection, and then from there, one thing led to another, and now I'm here. So I get to work directly for Enscape, which is almost like a dream come true, pretty much. It's actually really cool. I'm still processing it every day. Like, it's still really cool.
And then that's what's interesting is that the AEC has been struggling to like attract like a different demographic into the industry. And I feel like, you're an example of that, like what those pathways are. And like, as we open innovation and a digital implementation, it's like, what type of talent are we going to need? And to kind of broadcast that there's opportunity here for the folks that are interested in that sort of like visualization. Right. And then, what Enscape is doing with making it, I would say BIM friendly. So like being able to like see that identity data, that was like one of the newer updates was that BIM feature, which
the BIM.
Yeah. Describe what that is.
So the BIM feature, that is essentially where in the Enscape viewer, you'll be able to click on anything within the scene, any object within the scene, and it'll pull up every information about that particular wall or whatever you click on. So it'll pull all the information from Revit in there. And then there's also a feature, if you're using BIM Track too, there's also a feature to synchronize your projects and look at issues and markups within BIM Track as well, and synchronizing all those. So really cool stuff.
It does unlock the value of having a model. I've felt like in maybe around like 2012, which I wasn't in the industry yet, but when I was in 2016, I started to immerse myself, and there was a lot of resistance to this modeling environment versus drafting environment. And one of them is that, what's the value of building the model versus, drawing the specific layouts and formats that I've intended as a designer. And I think what Enscape has done is that like closes this loop on an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Those models become immersive.
They become immersive, and then you can really feel the story of why this building is built. You get to put your own personal touch on it, and then you really get to see why are we building this model? What's it for? You get to see the story of it. You can see it throughout the whole project's life cycle. It almost gives you that microscope into the whole cycle of it, which is really cool to see, because now customers, stakeholders, everybody can stay up to date on what's going on with their project.
Yeah, I also think it gives some designers some cred, because
exactly,
people get to see how hard it is. I worked on a project. It was a couple that needed to build an addition for the mother-in-law. I haven't met the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law, eventually this addition will just serve as like the owner suite or the primary suite for the house. So my primary clients are the husband and wife, but I'm like, I've got to think, universal accessibility. I've got to think all of this, but it also needs to service the needs of the husband and wife. I'm like, this is hard. But Enscape definitely the owners definitely understood how much more efficient the design process was, because they got to see some of those rough challenges we were facing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the cool stuff that maybe sometimes they don't get to see.
Absolutely.
Because they could just look at a floor plan, and then you're sitting there making notes, and then it's like you go back to your computer and then just give them a fresh set, and they're like, oh, well, that must have been super easy for you. It's like, no, actually not.
Definitely not. I think it is very powerful to show some of the challenges as a designer's trying to face and have that that connection with your clients. It's powerful.
Exactly. And you get to build that relationship with them too, which is even better.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about like new talent and diversity coming into the AEC industry. Is there anything that Enscape is doing to kind of build out that platform, either in like a nonprofit, institutional, educational?
Yeah, no, completely. So we're working a lot with educationals. You get, if you're a student or an educator, you get free licenses for as long as you're a student or a teacher.
Wow.
So that's something really powerful because, you know, we're encouraging that. Could definitely, it's on our website too. I can pull up the web link. It's enscape3d.com/educational licenses. So that's
throw that in the show notes, folks.
Yep, exactly. So it's definitely something we're really encouraging the next generation to get into it. And we're also here to help out too. So we'll be able to help out with educational trainings, training teachers, get them up to speed too. You have the access to the support button as well as a student. So if you ever run into a problem, you can hit that feedback button and our support agents can jump in and help out as well.
Very responsive. So, I've experienced that. Very responsive.
Awesome. Glad to hear. I'll pass that off to the team. But yeah, that's something that we're continuously getting better at too. Doing more with students, helping the next generation build us a better tomorrow, pretty much.
There we go. Yes. Do you, since you have such a pulse on your users and your clients, are there key challenges that they're encountering that you're noticing as a general theme in the industry?
I think the overall one that's becoming more and more prevalent is keeping everybody up to date on the project's life cycle. So as long as people are getting more and more used to it, it's becoming more and more of a thing. And then how do we go beyond the A in AEC? That's one of the challenges. How do you play well with everybody? How do you get engineers and construction side and everything? So that's one of the challenges right now. Is how do you get all that? How do you
make it BIM-y?
Exactly. How do you make it BIM-y? How do you make it BIM-y?
Yeah.
To keep everybody there.
The first thing we have to make sure everyone knows what BIM-y is.
Yep. I'm gonna make some sweet t-shirts. BIM-y.
We do. Whenever I find myself speaking to like a new audience, I'll use BIM and then I'll like transfer building information modeling. And then in the back of my brain, I'm like, why is this the acronym that I am forced to use? And I'm like, I've been trying to brainstorm if there's like digital model construction.
Right.
And like DMC. I'm like, that sounds like Run DMC, and I'm into that. I'm like,
we're gonna show up to next AU. You got like a Run DMC shirt on.
I don't know if I can have that much sway on the industry. I'm like migrate away from them, but it is important I actually had a client reach out. It's a new construction project. It's on a lake. The topography is very challenging because it's like a cliff. And I put a proposal out, they emailed us back, and it was great. He was like, we've decided to push forward with the BIM. And I'm like, yes, yes, you have.
He was listening to me.
I was like, that's it. I need people to start like using the vernacular and using it like in an empowered way.
Exactly.
Yeah, the podcast.
And it's been such a huge thing too.
It has.
There's just so much information that just went unnoticed. And now with BIM, you can see all that information that was maybe that the owners and stakeholders weren't prevalent to. And now they can see it. So they can help stay up to date and keep everybody, a note on what they would like change, if anything.
Absolutely. I'm like going through my question. I have too many questions to ask you, so we're gonna like try and keep this to an hour. But I was kind of like wondering, like, what are some like unique goals that you have or philosophies about the industry, since now you're out of like that digital, motion picture type environment into this AEC? Like, are you starting to develop new and interesting goals? with what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it's personally, how can you make the A, the E, and the C all work together? So you got your civil side, you got your MEP side, you got your ARC side. How can you make everybody play together? Like, because it takes everybody. It's not just one. It takes a whole division to make a building. So that for me was the coolest thing, understanding the process, understanding like what all it takes, to make a building. Like it really takes every discipline, like now I'm constantly looking around everything like, oh yeah, okay, I can see, okay, there's the ductwork, there's like, so it's just that for me was the coolest thing. And then being able to see how we can help keep everybody together, give everybody one platform where they can work together to help get to one end goal. That's ultimately, we're all working together to make one end product.
Well, and I've asked you, like, the culture of Enscape as a company to work for, and like, you've like, just happy as, pig in mud. And I think that is so important because it is, and I've written about this in some of like my blog posts, is when you're asking an industry to make these shifts, these big shifts, it's important for the platform companies to take this collaborative, because we don't want to create a dependency. So I can tell you right now that our workflow is very Enscape dependent, because it gives my clients, you talk about bringing everybody to the table, they got to want to be on that platform.
Exactly.
It's got to be a pleasant and productive experience.
Yep.
And so how is the Enscape team like infusing that into their development?
It's things on our roadmap that we're looking into on how to play better with all of those. It's in the discussion on the how. The why is there. It's just the how. What's the steps to get there? How do we, so it's something that's on the roadmap that they're looking at. How do you grow? How do you get forward? So.
I think it's fantastic that there is a company roadmap, because I think that is a unique operational, like how to create the cohesion on the team.
Right. Yeah. It's
to do a roadmap. And you reached out to me because you were doing some internal, what do we call it? So you want success stories? Internal
customer. Yeah. To kind of help our internal team see how our customers are using the product, because then it gives them better. It's like, oh, they're using it for a way we didn't think of. Like, that's super cool. I wonder if there's other people doing the same thing. So, or maybe there's a little trick too that you guys are using, to help out with the product. And it's like, oh, that's super cool. Then we didn't think of that or something, because we really love customer feedback. That's how it helps us grow.
Yeah.
You guys are using the software daily. You guys know the workflow. So definitely your ideas help out too. Because then it's like, oh, well, maybe we could look at something like this to help with that.
And I think that's unique, because you've got engineers that have the capacity and capability to build platforms that are applicable to the AEC industry. But are they made for us, by us?
Exactly. By users, for users.
Yeah, it's like I loved it, because so when you reached out to me, I was sharing a story about during quarantine and shutdown, there was a big project and it needed to be developed, and a builder brought me in because we had a sheet set, but we didn't have a way for getting the customers that were basically stranded in Florida but wanting to build a house in upstate New York. How do we get everybody connected through these sheet sets? And having, so the builder reached out to me, is like, do you think you can get a model created for us so that we can have this immersive experience? And I had, Zoom meetings with Enscape, virtual tours, and it was one of the unique things was having the builder see the finishes that we had installed into the model, because the plans had, gaps in what the finishes were going to be. And, he would call me out. He's like, do not put that in there. I did not put that in the bid. Take that out right now. So to to get like the Enscape engineers like understanding like the positive impact they're having on production and keeping production going. I thought that was great. So, you know, if more people who are listening or Enscape users or Enscape fans are considering Enscape, I think that's one of the unique things about working with the company is it's integrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And we greatly appreciate your customer story too. We really loved it.
Well, there was like that practical thing. And then there was the Ginger BIM 2020, which was our...
That was cool though. That was really cool.
Well, what did I quoted Buddy the Elf. It's like the best way to share, to spread holiday cheer is sharing our Ginger BIM at the end of the year. And it was literally our models and just changing out what the materials were from, you know, gypsum and siding to frosting and gingerbread, and adding some gumdrops. So.
Those were some really cool models though. Those were some really cool models. She did a really good job on them.
It was a great team effort, and it certainly was a great way to close out 2020.
Yeah, and it's something fun too. Like especially during these times too. Like something fun like that. Like it's really cool. And it gave everybody a good laugh too. They're like, that is cool. Like that is really awesome. Like especially Buddy the Elf, like it was a cool Easter egg. Like, that was cool. Like, yes.
Yeah. So, all right. You and I had a nice tutorial, which is something I think customers could reach out to you guys for on how to use some of the new features that you guys are offering. Yeah. What was our tutorial on, Josh?
It was on creating custom assets.
Woo! Custom assets. Yeah, that's amazing.
Custom assets. Love the feature.
So yes, that is something fun. Do you guys have any tutorials that are posted now? Or is that something that if someone wanted to get a little more information out, they could reach out to you guys?
I believe there's a couple YouTube videos out there.
Hint, a lot of our YouTube
hint, yep. A lot of our power users too are actually doing a lot of really cool videos as well to get a whole different spin on how they're using it in their daily workflow too. So that's a really cool thing to see as well. You know, so we encourage people to make these cool videos that you guys are doing with cool stuff. Like we really encourage it. It's really cool to see. There is a how-to on our knowledge base on how to create custom assets. So it gives you kind of like a step-by-step on how to, or like you said, feel free to reach out. We can schedule a web session with myself or another member of our team, and we can walk you through on how to do that.
So was there a trigger for like that being a feature that you guys were adding? Did you have customers that were requesting that? Like what was the instigator?
Yeah. So it was a heavily requested thing. Because a lot of times if you have something specific that you need, it might not be in the Enscape assets that ship with it, which is an ever growing thing. But you know, you have a specific model that you need. If you don't see it in there, there's a way now where you can create it yourself. Especially if it's too hard to model in Revit, because Revit or a different program, it could be kind of hard. Or if you find find a model that somebody's already created out there, now you can just add it in yourself using the custom asset editor. So you can just walk through there, load it in, add the textures to it, scale it accordingly, and now you can just drag and drop it in there. So it's really it broke a lot of grounds. It was really cool. It was a huge update.
It is. And we've just started playing around with it, but it does give, and I'm 100% Revit based. So you maybe go into how other platforms are using it, but I can tell you that when we're trying to give like those really immersive photorealistic renderings out for our clients to like really drive home our design. And in some cases really, inspire our clients to follow our design lead. The adding some of those features really do make it like homey. It gives it that like, you know, home vibe versus just like, this is your room.
Well, exactly. There's a lot of nature assets in there. There's a lot of really good just assets in general. But like you said, it's how do you add those little things that you normally couldn't in Revit, like a bowl full of cherries on a table or a bowl full of apples or, you know, something like that, just to add to the story of the design. And then it just triggers something in the customer. Like I could, you know, they can relate to it more. It helps tell the story of it more. So it's cool little things like that. That's how it's being used in other programs as well too. like just to add those little things in there.
Yeah.
Then especially for trees and plants as well too, or vehicles as well.
Yeah.
Like people.
Oh, FYI, I had a client that had like a red Corvette. We actually found like a red Corvette to have in his driveway in the model.
Nice. See, perfect, fun stuff.
And it added that level of the, like, wow, you guys really know us. We're like, yes, we really listen to you. We really try and have this very deep empathetic experience with how you're going to use it. And helping, honestly, like it does, adding those assets, I would say, gives relativity. It helps people not only relate to the space, but also create like proportions for the space.
Exactly.
It's like, I need to fit this couch. And I can tell you that I've tried 100 ways to make like a nice plushy couch in the Revit family. But you know what? Sometimes
that's
just
not what Revit was.
Drop an asset.
Yep. Yeah. And that was a bigger thing too. Like there's just some things like the CAD software it's not made for that. So here's where you could use an asset, which is somebody's taking the time to model it and it looks really, really nice. So it gives that next level of realism. So we can just drag and drop that in there and boom.
Yeah, it's definitely a time saver.
Yeah. And then the customer's like, wow, you spent hundreds of hours. It's like, yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not billing accordingly. All right, so let's go back to some of my show notes because we definitely went on a nice little tangent there.
No, we could sit here and talk for hours.
Yeah. So, have you found any like individuals in the industry that you're like, using mentors like to help guide you? Like, what are some of the like best and worst decisions you've made in your career path?
Some of the best ones I've had are just asking questions. So like going to conferences was really, really beneficial to me because a lot of times it was just, my coworkers are still super beneficial because they've all come from the industry. So they've had that industry experience. So I'd always sit there and pick their brain and they're like, nah, I wouldn't say that. Cause I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know. That's why I'm asking before I screw something up really badly.
Before I go on a podcast and talk about something.
Exactly. Talk about something completely like I just have no idea. Like, so, just asking questions and like, look, I want to know. So that's going to help me grow. So coworkers have been phenomenal, past and present coworkers, people at conferences like you, it's just great meeting people and then just asking questions like, hey, tell me about your experience. Like, wow, you've been in the industry for a very long time, or you're doing some really cool stuff. How are you doing that? Like that to me has been the biggest thing. That's helped me grow a lot is just by asking questions to people. And the AEC industry. So I always call it like a tight knit little community. So it's like, we're all trying to help each other out, which is, we're all growing together. So it's just been really cool to see that. So that's been extremely helpful.
Yeah. We've said it on like past, I've said it on this podcast several times. What I do love about the digital AEC minded folks is that it is a very open community. Like they're really excited to answer your questions and be a resource, which is incredible. And I would say it's new to the industry.
Yeah, no, it's been a really cool thing to see. I'm super fortunate to have made the connections that I have, and, talk to the people that I have. It's just been really cool. I couldn't have done it without them. Couldn't have done it without everybody. So,
well, it couldn't have been all easy. Can you say if there's anything that like keeps you up at night or gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, what are some of the driving factors here?
It's easy to get out of bed in the morning when you're doing something that you're super passionate about and stay up late at night. Like this stuff is like an obsession for me. Just like, how can I create a digital world that's not existent yet? Or how can I create something that it's a living, breathing object? Like that to me, and the industry's ever changing too. Like we saw how fast technology is growing. Like it's growing at an extremely rapid pace, like with the rise of, real-time rendering, like that was just mainly used in visual effects and video games. But now you can see it taking the AEC industry by storm and so many possibilities that it has. And like with the rise of like VR, AR, all that stuff too. So all this stuff is just, it's an obsession of mine. So when I'm not, obviously, after I put the kids to bed at night, And it's like, all right, I'm going to just do some research, just play, try and get better, just constantly learning, because there's always something to learn. Like it's just an ever growing thing. So to me, it's easy to get out of bed in the morning and stay up late, because like I said, all this stuff is too fun. It's an obsession for me. I'm too focused on it now.
Well, what was it? We reconnected, I would say last spring during like complete quarantine shutdown. We're all kind of like, well, reach out to Josh. What's he up to? Did you ever figure out, I put a challenge to figure out how to take a Revit IFC file and push it into Minecraft, because my son gave me a challenge.
No, I haven't figured that out yet, but before I came here, I did figure out a way to export. You could build your own Minecraft map, and then there was a program out there where you could export that, and then you could actually have it as a 3D model. So with the custom asset editor, you could take your little Minecraft world, throw that into Enscape, or what I used to do with them, I used to export them, and then you could 3D print them, full color and everything.
Wow. Yeah. There you go. That's fun.
That was a fun thing. My kids loved it. That's the world we just made. I'm like, yeah, yep. There it is in the palm of your hand now.
Yeah, my daughter's still trying to get me. So she's got a house that she's built. She's got several houses in Bloxburg. She's like, Mom, put this into Revit. Let's make it real.
Let's make it real.
Yeah.
I'll have to find that program that you can export it again and send it over to you. Now then it's like, hey, look, now it's an Enscape.
So like, let's do some industry insights. Okay. What are you hearing from your customers who are like maybe not Revit based, and like, what Enscape is doing to kind of empower other platforms?
It's still the real-time feedback, being able to show real-time model updates in a photorealistic manner, being able to see those instantaneous changes. That's been the biggest thing so far, like across platforms, like with ArchiCAD and Vectorworks and Rhino. Just being able to see those real-time model feedbacks has been the biggest thing too. And the ease of use, like being able to literally click start and then have everything be available in a matter of seconds, minutes, depending on the size of your model and your computer. Being able to have that at the palm of your hands, and again, the ease of use too has been a really huge thing for everybody. And the quality right out of the gate, being able to have something that looks really, really good right away has been the biggest thing that we've seen and heard.
And you are really good at like doing some little trick, I don't say hacks, but like little unique settings and such. Can you maybe throw some out to our listeners? Little tips and tricks to making Enscape really pop.
You know me, I love my materials. So I love my textures.
Don't tell anybody. It's our trade secret.
Yeah. Just utilize the different material maps in there. Those are the biggest things. Those will really help push the rendering farther. Because materials can make or break a model. If a material just looks super flat and it doesn't look real, somebody's just gonna you could have the greatest model in the world, but if the texture doesn't look good, it's just kind of like that looks too fake. You know what I mean? So if you could spend a little bit of time on your textures to make them look really good and utilizing those different material maps, because a lot of times you could have a perfectly smooth piece of metal, which is fine, but most of the time in life we see it's got some little surface imperfections. So if you can start adding those little details in there, those really, really help sell the realism, and just tell the story. Like, hey, this fridge has a story, or this countertop's got a story. But it just adds to the overall feeling of it. And then QR codes have been a really, really cool feature, to be able to have a QR code and then have your customer have it on the palm of their hand, on their tablet or phone. Has been a really cool feature. It's just a panorama, but it's still something cool, because we're like, wow, like I can hold that. It's been really cool to see.
It is. And it's interesting because it does seem like it did take me some time to like really leverage that and like get people into it, because I am so accustomed to using Enscape in the design development. And then I've literally gone to, the tile shop and talked to like the owner of the tile shop. And I'm like, this is what this room looks like. And I'm pulling out my phone and I'm doing a 360, right. Like, wait, what is this? I mean, it's
well, exactly.
it's moving as you're moving.
Yeah. Right. And it's on my phone. Like, how are you doing that? Like, that's so cool. Like, it's one of those kind of like overlooked features, but then when you see it, you're like, wow, that's cool. And then your head starts spinning. You're like, wait, I can put these like in my title block. I can put these floor plan. So then when the customer is looking at the floor plan or when it's printed, you just say, hey, scan with your phone quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if they don't have a machine that can run an executable file or something, like, hey, you can have that. And it's a cool little takeaway for them too. Now they can just bookmark the tab and then they have it. So those have been some really really cool things. Obviously utilize custom assets. I'll talk for days about those.
Custom assets. We made a red metal chicken and it was fun because we played with the scale, whether the chicken sculpture sits on a table or whether it's a lawn.
It's a 10-foot tall red chicken.
Angry.
And then I'll put myself as a little angry red chicken. And then I have 3D scans of myself, so I always just put little Easter eggs in my models.
Yeah, that's what I got to do. We got to start doing that because I've got I actually, from a practical side, we needed to demonstrate that we had head clearance in this one bathroom layout because it had to be a clipped ceiling. It was on one of our habitat projects. So small footprint house. And we actually threw the construction worker into the bathroom, standing in front of the toilet. See? Just so you know.
Just say, look at it. Say, look at it.
Casey, I remember my staff was, using that actually as a method to like verify like head clearance. And then I got into the model and I actually got startled. I actually jumped in my seat because who's here? It's just the thing too. Like happened. I'm like, the construction worker surprised me.
What's the thing too? Like you just said, it puts you in a totally different sense. Like just some of your senses just get lost because then you're fully immersed in it and then you're so focused. That's the power of it. Like then you really get that next level sense of it that you just can't do looking at a set of floor plans or like a still rendering.
Yeah. It's been really fun. So what would you, if some folks wanted to get into the industry or they're like new and trying to figure out where their pathway is, like, or can you give you any advice? Like, what do you want people to know?
Yeah. So oftentimes what I tell people is like, do a little bit of, find something that you're really like interested in. Like if you're more focused on the architecture side, just start Googling around. There's a lot of really great resources out there for like content to help you learn more. That's what I found too. Like CG Architect was a really good one. A lot of really good forums out there too. Just going back to everybody's open to talking about things in the AEC community. So just asking questions too, like jump on a forum, just, hey, I'm just looking for some insight, or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been a really huge one for me. You mentioned I love LinkedIn. Like, yeah, it is. Cause I can sit there and just like, just cause it's like, hey, like I got a question about this. I did some research and I'm still coming up short. Would you mind if I picked your brain for a little bit? Like before COVID, I could say, hey, could I take you out for a cup of coffee or something and just pick your brain. Conferences were a really good one too. Who knows what's going to happen this year with conferences, but if they're online, definitely jump in. Just soak up as much information as you can. That's just what has always worked for me. And learning the process too. I've done a couple presentations at colleges and just say, if you can, go out to a job site real quick. Pick an architect's brain, pick an engineer's brain. If they can get you for a couple minutes, learn the process. Just at least you'll have, because then that'll help you throughout every stage of the design process from start to finish. Because then you'll know what they need. You'll understand what the limitations are. It's just kind of just have a good understanding of how the process works.
Absolutely,
we got to play nice together, right?
Well, we do. And honestly, if like with the amount of if you're adding visuals and everybody has context, then all of those conversations I find go a lot smoother. I've had models that I created from 2D plans. Like, I was hired by a builder to create the 2D plans and we knew that there are, clashes in the prints, but it was difficult to describe them or point them out to the designer. And I get the model created, have a Zoom meeting with the builder and the architect. And I'm like, this is how this manifests. Did I get this right? Is this what you intended? And have the architect be like, oh yeah, no. And I'm like, all right, well, this is how these roof systems go together. How do you want to adjust this?
Right.
And honestly, like, did I model it correctly and get their feedback? Right. And I think that's one of my favorite things is that there's such legacy knowledge in the industry, just sort of captured. And what I love is the collaborative relationship and the diversity we get. So I've got an 80-year-old architect that's been incredible in, giving us design feedback, like kind of best practices, but just like the artistry of like what that history has. It actually gets manifested in our models now.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Like there's so much history because if you look, architecture's been around for thousands of years. Same with MEP and construction. They've been around for a very, very long time. So there's really, really good knowledge out there. And most of the time people are willing to, maybe not give away complete trade secrets, but at least point you in the right direction, and at least give you a good starting.
One of my favorite things about Enscape is when I get an HVAC specialist into the model and, we generally create like placeholders for where those systems are going to go. But if I can get them into the model in like early design phases and you can tell that it's an artistry to create those.
Oh, absolutely.
To create those air handling systems. It's an art.
Well, yeah, it was just something too, like you don't really think of. And then you think about it, you're like, yeah, I got to have warm air in my house or air conditioning. Where's it gonna go? Like it just that was cool seeing that. And like you said, it's an art too. Like once you see all the crazy stuff they have to bend pipe around or make fit into tiny little, it's like that's for you guys.
Yep. Yeah, it has been fun, and I do think that it's I'm excited for where the industry is going. I'm excited to meet people like you. I'm excited for companies like Enscape to exist and kind of like broadcast like the impact we're having on, the world. So
we got to have buildings to live. So,
well, it definitely fast tracks sustainability practices, I would say.
Oh, exactly. It's a tool to be utilized to help see what's coming, to help see what the buildings are going to look like. It's a cool thing.
All right. Well, I think we're wrapping up. I mean, is there anything that I need to ask that I didn't?
I think we're good.
And if folks wanted to, I know people can reach you on LinkedIn.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. People can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I always have it open, even on my phone too. So if I don't respond right away, more than likely I'm playing with the kids or on a hike with the kids somewhere or playing softball. So
or making sure like someone else knows how to use the custom asset.
Exactly. Yeah. Or I'm doing that. I'm like, hey, let's do something cool, or let's make some cool materials or something.
All right.
Let's make something cool.
I really appreciate the time. I'm glad we got to get everybody some exposure on not just how awesome Enscape is, and then you as a member of their customer experience team. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great. Always great catching up with you guys again too.